بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. عن جابر رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سأل أهله الأدم فقالوا ما عندنا إلا الخل فدعا به فجعل يأكل به ويقول نعم الإدام الخل نعم الإدام الخل نعم الإدام الخل. قال جابر فما زلت أحب الخل منذ سمعتها من نبي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال طلحة بن نافع وما زلت أحب الخل منذ سمعتها من جابر رضي الله عنه. رواه مسلم وروى أبو داود والترمذي وابن ماجه. Sayyidina Jabir radiyallahu anhu relates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked his family for some food, for some gravy. They said, we have nothing but vinegar. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for the vinegar to be brought. And then he started eating with that vinegar. And he started saying, نعم الإدام الخل نعم الإدام الخل نعم الإدام الخل. That what an excellent condiment is vinegar, what an excellent gravy is vinegar, what an excellent food is vinegar. Jabir radiyallahu anhu said, who is the narrator of this hadith, that since that time I have always loved vinegar, since I heard this from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then Talha bin Nafi' said, I have always loved vinegar since I heard this hadith from Jabir radiyallahu anhu. Two things are to be addressed in this hadith. First is the virtue of vinegar. You've all tasted vinegar. Vinegar is something that is used in many meal preparations, many cookings. And it's something that's very old. It's not something newly discovered. It's something very old. In fact, in one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the vinegar had always been one of the lovely foods of the prophets. All the prophets used to eat vinegar, used to have vinegar, and they all loved it, including Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He praised vinegar 3 times. He said, "Ni'mal idamu al-khal, ni'mal idamu al-khal, ni'mal idamu al-khal." What an excellent condiment is vinegar. What an excellent food is vinegar. What an excellent gravy is vinegar. Now, vinegar, to some, it tastes a little bit sour. And you can't really use vinegar without using something else with the vinegar. But you can use it with the bread or with something else, and you can mix it into something, and then it tastes delicious. But on its own, you can't use it unless you mix something with the vinegar. So vinegar is made in different ways. And vinegar is also made directly from wine. Sometimes you see white wine vinegar or red wine vinegar or some other wine vinegar. So when you see the word wine before the vinegar, that puts many of us in doubt. Because the word wine is there, so we say, oh, there's probably some wine in it. There's some liquor in it. That means it's haram. Because if something has wine, if something has liquor, that automatically becomes haram for us to use. So if you go to Stop and Shop, or if you go to a grocery store, you see there are different forms of vinegar, a variety of vinegars. Red wine vinegar, white wine vinegar, and other forms of vinegar. But vinegar comes in different in different kinds of flavors and things like that. So one thing that you should know at this point that I want to disclose to you is that all sorts of vinegar is halal. Whether it is made from wine or not. There's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that says that when the wine has become vinegar, then that's halal. So if someone had a bottle of wine and he processed it, he made it into vinegar, then that bottle of wine does not remain bottle of wine. That becomes a bottle of vinegar, and that's halal. You can sell vinegar, you can buy vinegar, you can use vinegar for your own consumption. So vinegar is something that's halal. And even if it is coming from wine, whether it's red wine or white wine or grape or any kind of wine, once it has become vinegar, then it's halal. Now some may ask this question that, so is it permissible that if someone has a bottle of wine, should he start making it into vinegar or should he destroy it? So the answer to that question depends. If that wine was given to you by someone and you have no financial freedom to spare it, then it is permissible to turn it into vinegar and use it. But if you have financial freedom to destroy it, to spare it, to waste it, then you should not use it in any way. You should just simply destroy it, waste it. Because turning wine into vinegar is not everyone's game. You have to do some processing with wine in order to turn it into vinegar. So vinegar in all of its forms is halal, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to like vinegar, used to love vinegar. And in another hadith that is narrated by Hani radiyallahu anha, in that hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma aqfara baytum min idamin fihi khallun." That house in which there is vinegar, that house is not empty of food. There is food. So if your house has vinegar, that means you have food. And many times in the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, vinegar was the only food available, as we learned in the previous hadith. And there are many other hadith in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked one of his wives, he said, "Is there anything to eat?" They said, "There's nothing but vinegar." And normally people don't use vinegar just like that. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say that vinegar is food, and that's enough. And then he would use that vinegar with bread or with something, and he would eat it. So in this hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma aqfara baytum min idamin fihi khallun." That home is not empty, void of food in which there is vinegar. So having vinegar itself is a source of blessing. When you consider this sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and when you consider these ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Next hadith, and another thing, the second thing that I want to point out is that although, as I mentioned, naturally people don't really like vinegar unless they have to use it in cooking or use it with something to mix it with. But when Jabir radiallahu anhu, who is the narrator of this hadith, who is a Sahabi, companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Ma ziltu uhibbu al-khalla mundu sami'tuha min nabiyyillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam." That the day I heard this love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for vinegar, I started loving vinegar as well. And since that day until today, I have always loved vinegar. And then, even more amazing is that the person who narrated this hadith from Jabir radiallahu anhu, the next person, the tabi'i, who heard this hadith from Jabir radiallahu anhu, who was not a sahabi. So the person who heard this hadith from Jabir radiallahu anhu, his name was Talha bin Nafi'. So Talha rahmatullahi alayh, he added his own word as well. He said, "Ma ziltu uhibbul khalla mundu sami'tuha min Jabir." That I have always loved vinegar since the day I heard this hadith from Jabir radiallahu anhu. So when Talha rahmatullahi alayhi heard this hadith from Jabir radiallahu anhu, he started loving vinegar. And when Jabir radiallahu anhu heard this hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly, he started loving vinegar as well. That means they did not love it before. They only loved it after they heard that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved it. This is how much they loved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even the things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved, even the things that were dear to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his taste, Sahaba radiallahu anhu would start loving those things as well. Even if they did not love it naturally, but they would start loving it out of their love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that happens. Sometimes you may not like something yourself, but once you know that my father loves it, or my mother loves it, or my wife loves it, or someone else that you love loves it, you start loving that thing as well, or that place. The next hadith is narrated by Abu Usaid radiallahu anhu. He said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kulu zayt waddahinu bih, فإنه من شجرة مباركة." Eat olives and use its oil. So eat olives and use its oil. فإنه من شجرة مباركة, because olive comes from a blessed tree. So this hadith lays down the virtue and the importance of olives. You can eat olives as they are, or you can use the olive oil. Both things are mentioned in this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said the reason why you should eat olive and you should use olive oil is because olives and olive oil come from a blessed tree. And it is the olive tree from where the olive oil comes. And in another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kulu zayt waddahinu bih, فإنه طيب مبارك." Eat olives and use the oil from olives, because it is a blessed and pure fruit and vegetable. The next hadith is narrated by Abu Juhayfa radiallahu anhu. So far we learned two things. We learned about vinegar and we learned about olives. So vinegar is good because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved it. And olive is also good, and the olive oil is also good because it comes from a blessed tree. The next hadith is narrated by Abu Juhayfa radiallahu anhu. He said, "Akaltu tharidatan min khubzin wa lahm." I ate tharid, which was made from bread soaked in meat. So he ate that delicious food, and he probably ate stomach full. He said, ثُمَّ أَتَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. Then I came to visit Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَجَعَلْتُ أَتَجَشَّأُ. He said, I started burping. فَقَالْ So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was right there, and he was burping in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ya hada, kuffa min jusha'ik." O Abu Juhayfa, hold your burps. Don't do it in front of us. This is disrespectful. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was teaching Abu Juhayfa radiyallahu anh directly and other Sahaba indirectly that burping in front of the face of another person is not good. It is disrespectful. So he said, "Ya hada, kuffa min jusha'ik." O Abu Juhayfa, hold your burp. Don't do it in front of my face. فَإِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ شِبَعًا فِي الدُّنْيَا أَكْثَرُهُمْ جُوعًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Then he said, indeed, those people who eat stomach full in this world, they will be more in hunger, in starvation on the day of judgment. Because the true servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they follow that hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said that if you really have to eat a lot, then have 1/3 for food, 1/3 for water, and 1/3 for breathing in your stomach. So you should divide your stomach in 3 portions. 1 portion should be for food, 1 portion should be for water, and one portion should be for breathing. If you fill all 3 portions with food, then there will be no room for water, and there will be no room to breathe. And that when there will be no room to breathe, then you will be burping in front of other people, which is disrespectful. Then there are other ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in that regard as well. Next hadith is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he used to say that شر الطعام طعام الوليمة يدعى إليها الأغنياء وتترك المساكين ومن لم يأت الدعوة فقد عصى الله ورسوله. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu used to say, which he heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the worst of all foods, the worst of all feasts of food, meals, is that food which is the food of walima. Walima is that feast which is offered after a nikah, after a marriage of a man and a woman. So he said that the worst food is that food which is the food of walima. Why? Because yud'a ilayha al-aghniya wa tutrakul masakin. That the rich people, the wealthy people are invited to eat, and the poor and needy people who are in need of food, they are pushed away. So the food is reserved only for the wealthy. And the real needy people, the poor people who are in need of food, if they come by and ask for some food, they are pushed away from the door. That you're not invited. There's no room for you. So that's why he said that the food of walima is the worst food, because of this ill treatment to people who are really in need and who are really hungry. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَأْتِ الدَّعْوَةِ فَقَدْ عَصَى اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. So if this is not the case, then the walima is a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is one of the blessed foods in Islam. So if people are invited not because they're wealthy or rich, but their relatives, their friends, and if needy people come, they're also welcome. They also get the food. They also get to eat. Then the food of walima is a good feast, is a good food. There's khayr, there's barakah. Then he said, Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَأْتِ الدَّعْوَةِ فَقَدْ عَصَى اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Whoever does not accept an invitation, then indeed he disobeyed Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if someone invites you to have a meal, to have some food, you should accept his invitation. Unless there is something else, another reason to deny the request, to reject the invitation. For example, let's say you live in Boston, and I say, please come to my house on this day or on that day to have dinner. And that person, he has to drive for 2 hours or for 1 hour or for 3 hours, and it's really difficult for him. He's not going to be able to come just to have dinner after driving 3 hours one way and then 3 hours going back, 6 hours of drive. That's going to put him in a lot of difficulty, in a lot of hardship. So if that's the case, then you have the liberty, you have the freedom to reject the invitation politely. You can say, I cannot come. This is too difficult for me, driving 2-3 hours one way and then having the meal for whatever, half an hour, 1 hour, and then going back 2-3 hours, driving back 2-3 hours. Is too much. So it's too difficult and too hard. So you can simply you can simply reject the invitation with politeness. But if there is no reason to reject the invitation, then if you're invited by a Muslim brother, you should accept the invitation and you should go. Now, when you go, do you have to eat over there or not? Because sometimes what happens, you do accept the invitation, but you're not really hungry. So when you go there, the host really tries to push you. Please have this, have this, have this, have this. He wants you to eat everything, or from every dish. And he has prepared 10 dishes or 15 dishes. And he wants you to have at least something from every dish. And you have only one stomach. You can't put everything in one stomach. So, do you really have to eat from that house as well after you accept the invitation? Or you can simply go and pay the visits, have some chat and then come back. Let's look at another hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which will give an answer to that. The hadith is narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah radiyallahu anhu. He said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِذَا دُعِيَ أَحَدُكُمْ إِلَى طَعَامٍ فَلْيُجِبْ. When one of you is invited to a meal, then he should accept the invitation and he should go. فَإِنْ شَاءَ طَعِمَ وَإِنْ شَاءَ تَرَكَ. Now once you go there, it is up to you. If he eats, good. If he doesn't eat, that's still acceptable. So the answer from this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that when you accept the invitation and you go, you don't have to eat there. If you eat something, that's fine. If you eat everything, that's also fine. But if you don't eat at all, that's also acceptable. So the host does not have the right to blame you that even though you came to my house but you did not eat anything. This is in our culture. We raise these things to our guests, especially when it is among our relatives. So when relatives come and they don't eat, we think there is some problem. They either they're angry with each other or there's some family problem. That's why they did not eat from my house. Otherwise, they would have eaten something from my house. So it is up to the guest. If the guest who's invited to a meal, who's invited to a party, if he wants to eat something, if he feels like eating something, he can. If he feels like not eating anything, he's also free to make that choice. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فَإِنْ شَاءَ طَعِمَ وَإِنْ شَاءَ تَرَكَ. That if he wishes to eat something, he can. And if he wishes to not eat anything, he also has that choice to make. The next is the hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma. He said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِذَا دَعَا أَحَدُكُمْ أَخَاهُ فَلْيُجِبْ عُرْسًا كَانَ أَوْ نَحْوَهُ. That when one of you is invited by his brother, then he should accept the invitation and he should go. Whether it is the invitation of wedding, it is the invitation of walima, it is the invitation of aqiqah, or it is a casual invitation, just a weekend dinner, or just a holiday dinner, Eid dinner, or something else. So if you are invited, you should accept the invitation and go, unless you have an excuse. You can have an excuse that you're traveling, you will not be there, so you cannot make it, or it's too far for you, or the timing is too odd. During that time you have made another commitment, or you have to go somewhere else. So if you have an excuse, nothing wrong. You don't have to accept that invitation. You can politely refuse it. But if you don't have an excuse to reject the invitation, then as a Muslim, it is the right of your brother on you that you accept his invitation and you honor it and you go there. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. The last hadith, I just want to recite it for you. It's also very important. The hadith is narrated by Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma. He said that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man du'iya falam yujib, faqad asa Allah wa rasulah." Whoever was invited and he did not accept the invitation, he did not go, then he disobeyed Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمَنْ دَخَلَ عَلَى غَيْرِ دَعْوَةٍ دَخَلَ سَارِقًا وَخَرَجَ مُغِيرًا. Whoever went without invitation, so party crashers. So whoever went without invitation, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he enters as a thief and he exits as a robber, as he robbed the party, crashed the party. So this is basically, the hadith tells us that this is not allowed. So I know that back in Pakistan, some people have this habit that they just like to disguise as if they are invited to the party, and they just enter into the party, eat food, and then disappear. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those people truly, they enter like thieves, because nobody really knows them. So they have a strategy. So they have a strategy to handle the situation. So they enter like a thief, and once they have eaten the food, then they exit like they robbed the party. It took all the food. So this is something that Islam does not allow, unless you are a needy. And if you're needy, you should just ask that I need some food. Can I have some food from here? And any honorable person would never refuse to give food. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. Any questions? I'm sorry?
I heard, they say this. نحن قوم لا نأكل حتى نجوع وإذا أكلنا لا نشبع. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the translation?
Well,
so that we people, we don't eat unless we're hungry.
Yeah.
When we eat, we don't fill up. It's not that we never fill up.
No. The gist of that is you should eat when you are hungry. And you should leave the food when you're still hungry. You still have some hunger. Because it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that you're full. And in those 20 minutes, you have overfilled yourself. So if you don't stop, because it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to give signal to your brain that now it's full. So by the time the stomach gives signal to your brain, you have already overfilled your stomach. And that's why you should leave the food. You should stop your hands. You should pull your hands away from the food when you still feel some hunger. Even though at that time you're still feeling some hunger, but in reality your stomach is already full, it's just the matter of your brain getting the signal. And by the time your brain gets a signal, it will already be too late if you don't pull your hand, if you don't stop eating. That's why the scholars, they say that the really helpful tool to identify when the food is enough for you, that you have already eaten, is if you stop over there, you won't really feel hungry. But if you also have the choice to continue eating, because you can still put more food in your stomach. So at that point, you should stop. If you don't stop at that time, that means you're overfilling your stomach. And by the time your brain gets a signal that it is full, it is already overfull. That's why that saying is there, that you should not eat until you're hungry, and you should leave the food when you're still hungry. That means you should divide your stomach in 3 portions: 1 portion for food, 1 portion for water, for beverage, and 1 portion for breathing. And yes?
Well, if you're invited by a Muslim brother and food discussion, you realize the food that he cooked a lot of food, but they're like halal food.
Not halal food?
Yeah, you can
Then
be
you
very hungry also.
then you cannot eat. Unless you're dying.
How about that wine vinegar thing? I avoid, once I see wine, I avoid it. Do we have to check and see if there's alcohol in it?
Once it is vinegar, it is 100% vinegar. They will say that it is made from wine or whatever, but once it is vinegar, it's vinegar. Wine and vinegar are 2 opposite things. They cannot go together. You cannot have wine mixed into vinegar. The vinegar will kill wine, and it will make that wine into vinegar too. So vinegar is made by killing wine, by destroying wine. So they cannot go together. So when you see red wine vinegar or whatever, it's 100% vinegar. There's no wine in it anymore.
Yeah, reversible. You can make
No.
vinegar wine.
No. You cannot make wine from vinegar, but you can make vinegar from wine.
Yeah, but when you make a vinegar,
Yeah.
you have, let's say, if I put the apples in a jar to make them vinegar, I have to wait 40 days. After 40 days, I have to recover and take it as vinegar. If I wait more, it is wine.
I'm not sure. But you cannot, turn vinegar into wine, but you can turn wine into vinegar.
That's what.
Yeah.
I made vinegar, put it in a jar,
Yeah.
cover it 40 days. Take it off, it's vinegar. Leave it more, it becomes wine. Because the process with the sugar in it, chemical stuff, I'm not fully with this, but it becomes wine.
Okay. Last thing. I'm sorry?
I said we can try an expert.
Inshallah. Okay, last thing. All of you have heard many times probably, the American government is running deficits every year. Deficit is when the government spends more money than what it has, or than what it takes. So let's say, for example, if there are $1,000 that they're spending, they're probably only taking $700 or $800 or $900. So they are overspending by some money. So that deficit turns into debt. That's how the debt has turned $16 trillion. The reason why I mention this is because our Friday dinner fund is also in deficit. For many weeks, we've been running big deficits. So now we have 2 options. Either we stop funding this and we stop having the food. Or if we want to maintain this, if we want to continue this practice of dinners, then we have to fund it as well. It's the taxpayer money. So if you really want this Friday dinner, inshallah, to continue, then you have to support it. You have to sponsor it, or that's why when we started this first, we asked people to choose 1 week, or 1 week in every 4 months, 5 months or so, and that's how we did it successfully, alhamdulillah, in first year. But then we thought maybe it is difficult for one person to sponsor $200, all at once. So we came up with this box idea. And the box idea initially ran fine. it worked fine. But then people started, ignoring it. People did not pay attention to that. So now the situation is that, alhamdulillah, we've been doing the food, but the restaurant has been providing, and we owe the restaurant at this point. So we ask all of you, inshallah, to do whatever you can if you really want this to continue. I would really like to see this, continuing, and we want to bring more people, inshallah. We want more people to benefit. And from now on, the Salatul Isha will remain at 7:30 throughout the winter. So for next few months, the time will remain same, and this is good time for halaqah and for dinner, inshallah. So I want this to continue, but it can only happen, inshallah, with your support. So we ask you once again to support this, inshallah. And if you give whatever $20 every week, that's more than enough, alhamdulillah. But even if you give $10 every week, or maybe $50 a month as well, inshallah, that will still help us continue this tradition, inshallah. It costs about $200 for weekly dinner sponsorship, and in order to come up with $200, we need your support, inshallah. We are running, we owe money to the restaurant. We obviously want to pay them off, inshallah, as soon as possible. But for future as well, we want to continue this practice, inshallah. For next Friday, there will be no lecture, there will be no halaqah, because next Friday is the day of Eid, inshallah, and it's also Eid al-Adha, so people will be going for sacrifice, inshallah. So we'll see you again the Friday after next Friday, inshallah, for this halaqah, inshallah. Jazakumullah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل وسلم على عبدك ورسولك. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد أفضل صلواتك بعدد معلوماتك. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاكم الله.